Hey everyone, Sam here, otherwise known as FPL Pricey. In today's team selection video, I will be looking at how my team is set up ahead of Game Week 7, which players I'm most keen to bring in as quickly as possible, a potential bench boost that might be on the cards for me, my future chip strategy beyond this game week, of course, and how all of the Champions League fixtures are affecting our FPL teams going into Game Week 7. Welcome back to another video on my channel. Today we'll be running through my team selection and all of the key updates as we move towards Game Week 7. If you did enjoy today's video, I'd massively appreciate it if you could hit like and hit subscribe as well as we close in on 5,000 subscribers. And thank you all so much for nominating me for the Football Content Awards in the Fantasy Football category, of course. If you wanted to vote for me to try and win the award, the link is in the description below and it would be massively appreciated. However, we're here to talk about my team selection. Let's start off in goal and in defense. I've actually already made my free transfer this week. I had 1.9 million in the bank and I thought that prices would move a little bit more than they have done. So I went early by bringing in Gabriel in replacement for Murillo, who, let's face it, was an absolutely diabolical pick in game week 1. No clean sheets and got injured. I think he hit DEFCON once as well. So truly did nothing for me this season. And I don't expect to be going back there anytime soon. Gabriel, I've got much higher hopes for. The odds of clean sheets over the next 5 or 6 game weeks are very high for Arsenal. They've got some nice fixtures, starting off with West Ham at home in game week 7. And although he scored in game week 6, I don't think it's a knee-jerk transfer. He was always on the radar to be brought in ahead of game week 7. If anything, I'm just gutted that I don't have double Arsenal already in my side, given the odds of clean sheets over the next few fixtures. They are just a fantastic defence. They keep things so tight. The defensive data for the last 2, 3, even 4 seasons now has been very, very good. So I want a slice of those clean sheets. There is a possibility that I take a hit to bring in Raya as well in replacement for Sanchez, of course. I don't think Sanchez has got much hope of a clean sheet this week. Dubravka on my bench, arguably I could bring in for him, but I think they're fairly even because Sanchez is in the better defense at the end of the day. But either way, I don't think I'm expecting too much from either goalkeeper. Raya, not only is he a good pick for this week, but also for the next few weeks. So if I was looking at postponing the wildcard a bit further on, beyond game week 7, beyond game week 8, then Raya might be a sensible pickup even for a hit, because it might help me to postpone the wildcard because it's another player that I'll just be very confident in starting between now and game week 13. Game week 13 was the original week I did want to wildcard. I'd still love to make it that far, but I think there are just specific elements in my team that I'm not happy with. And each week I'm just going to drip value, drip points. And I think if I wait all the way to game week 13 with my current team setup, I'm going to be a little bit too far behind the crowd for my liking. And I'm not sure that what I can do in a game week 13 wildcard is going to be able to correct that and get back on the front foot. So right now, at time of recording, I think a game week 8 wildcard is looking fairly likely. If I did bring in Raya for a hit, it would only be if I was looking at postponing the wildcard a bit further on. But there are other players that I'll go into throughout the video that I'd also like to get to pretty quickly that, unless I do use a wildcard, I'm just not going to be able to do so over the next couple of game weeks. So I think Sanchez probably stays for now because I am looking at wildcarding in game week 8. In the defense, Tarkowski is playable pretty much any week. He is no longer a 100% hit rate DEFCON defender, but he's still 5 from 6, and it's not bad whatsoever. I'm not going to panic on him. Everton are still a decent defense, and I think over the season, he's going to be one of the top point scorers for defenders. So I'm not panicking on him. If you've just wildcarded into him, it's unlucky that he didn't get DEFCON for the first time, but I still think he's going to hit it more often than not, and he will get the odd clean sheet. Porro is one that I'm a little bit worried by. It is Leeds away and they're not a fantastic attack, so the odds of a clean sheet aren't bad, but his odds on DEFCON are pretty low. He's not been getting many attacking returns. The data's not fantastic. He's lost a few set pieces. There's a lot of things that suggest to me that he's not worth the price at 5.5 million anymore. So if I was wildcarding right now, despite the decent looking fixture this week, he would not be in on a wildcard draft. So that's another player, especially when it looks like I'm massively going up against someone like a Senesi this week at home to Fulham, good odds of a clean sheet himself. having Porro in there, who was rotated out, I think it was just a rest in game week 6, but was rotated nonetheless, it just doesn't fill me with loads of confidence. I do currently have Anderson, that's Fulham's Anderson, on the bench away at Bournemouth. The odds of a clean sheet aren't very good there either, but he is good on DEFCON. So there's an argument to say that maybe I could look at him over Porro to start this week. But like I mentioned in the opening to this video, I am also considering a bench boost. So will it make that much difference either way? I don't think there's much between the two, whatever happens. Right now, I'm starting Porro because I do think he'll start. I do think he's still got some attacking threat. And against Leeds, it's a decent enough fixture. So right now, my backline doesn't look as strong as maybe I'd want it to be. It's definitely missing Senesi. It's missing a second Arsenal player, but their ownership is around about 70, 80% right now. So even one Arsenal player might be enough to match up pretty well against the crowd average. So I think for now, it's probably just about acceptable with my goalkeeper and defense. Let's move into my midfield 4 at time of recording. Okay, so I'm fairly happy with my midfield 4 going into game week 7. I don't think it's exactly what I'd pick if I was wildcarding, but none of these are terrible picks that I'd be panicking about right now. Bruno Fernandes is obviously the one that people have the strongest opinions on, but at the end of the day, as far as we know, he's still the Man United penalty taker. And although he's missed 2 out of 3 this season, his record across several seasons is still very good. I think it's about 86, 87% in terms of success rate. So unless something has happened that has meant that he's a much worse penalty taker all of a sudden, as long as he's still on them, I'm happy enough to own him, especially considering it's Sunderland at home. Yes, they've been a pretty good defence, but it's still a decent enough fixture that I'm not going to panic sell him for this game week. So he might not survive on a wild card for me in game week 8 or beyond, but right now I don't think he's a priority sale. The same goes for Ndai, who had a disappointing-ish game week 6, especially for those of you who bought him on a wild card, but we haven't seen Everton awarded a penalty so far this season. We think he's the one on penalties, so that would be another strength of his to include him on a wild card, even if I wild carded next week. It's not a terrible fixture against Crystal Palace, and he's been getting DEFCON, I think it's 2 and 6 so far as well, so he's got plenty of routes to points. I actually quite like him from open play attacking threat as well. So again, at 6.5 million, I think you're getting fairly good value for money if he is on penalties, and there's no reason to think that he's not. Moving across, Sarr, I'm just very relieved that I held on to him this long because he was injured for a little while. He had to sit on my bench. He lost a bit of value. I think he's down to 6.4 million. But out of all of the players around that sort of price point, I think if I was picking one right now, it probably would be Ismaila Sarr. The fixtures don't look incredible, but for a long period of time, I think you'd start him in pretty much every single one of the fixtures. I think it's game week 9 against Arsenal where you might be tempted to bench him. But as we've just seen, even against Liverpool, he's capable of getting attacking returns. The underlying data is absolutely phenomenal, and it was also phenomenal last season. So it's not just a one-off, it's not random variance, it's something that is relatively sustainable. I just really like him at the price point, so I'm very happy that I've held on to him. And if I was wildcarding right now, he'd probably be in my draft as well. Reinders, similar. I don't think that I'm expecting miracles from him. He's a sub 6 million midfielder. He's getting good minutes for City at the moment, and that's all I can really ask. He'll tick along with the odd attacking return, I think. I'm still convinced that that will happen 1 in every 3, 1 in every 4 games. So I think he's absolutely fine to hold on to for a good couple of fixtures against Brentford and Everton. However, what I will say is, in the wildcard drafts that I'm creating right now, if I'm looking at next week or the weeks onwards, there are arguments to maybe look away from him. So someone like a Yankuba Minte at around the same sort of price now, I think he's 5.9 million, so a little bit more expensive, is putting up much better underlying XG per 90. And we haven't seen it yet, and I don't want to scaremonger whatsoever, but Cherki is back in training, and with Champions League also coming into play for City now, I do wonder if we're about to see a reduction in minutes for Reinders a little bit. That hasn't happened yet, so I'm not panicking, and right now I'm perfectly happy to own him, and I will wait until we see that happen. But I am just keeping an eye on that over the next few game weeks, and if I was wildcarding in game week 8, I'm not guaranteeing that I would hold on to him, but for now, I'm perfectly happy with him. So the question then becomes, which midfielders am I missing out on? Well, Clearly, Semenyo is going to be the one that I'm going to be hiding behind a sofa for. Same with Senesi, so Bournemouth in general, really. They've got a decent fixture this game week against Fulham at home, so I'm pretty scared of that. And in this draft, if I was going up against a wildcard draft from last week, a template one, it's basically Sarr versus Semenyo. Now, I think Semenyo's the better pick, but not by a wide enough margin to make me hit a wild card right now. The other picks that I'd be interested in right now would be Saka, who's not that well owned, but has good upside against West Ham. Salah, to some extent, still worries me a little bit, especially because Chelsea have defensive injuries. But every week that his ownership drops, I get less and less scared. I would like a plan to get back to him soon, though, and that is another reason that I might want to hold on to the wild card, just in case we see something better from Salah. But so far, we just haven't really seen those sort of heights that we've seen in recent seasons. So I'm not panicking about him. I'm less scared than I ever have been about not owning him, especially because the ownership's dropping. So he's not someone that I'm losing any sleep over. Finally, I've talked about Minte. I'd like to own him, but the ownership is low enough that I'm just not scared of him just yet. And Enzo Fernandez is the other one who has played very well at 6.5. Actually, a little bit higher than that. I think he's had a couple of price rises, but he's still at a good value. And if Palmer is out for an extended period, I think he becomes very tempting as well. So Enzo Fernandez is one that might come into my transfer plans over the next few game weeks if we get bad news on Palmer and he might be out for an extended time, because he does get more advanced. He does get into the final third more, get more shots away as well. Right now, though, I don't think he's a priority buy, especially considering it's Liverpool at home in game week 7. Okay, so completing my 11, onto my forward line. The three that I've got currently are Haaland, Watkins, and João Pedro. Haaland, we don't need to talk about. He's a phenomenal pick, and Brentford away is a good fixture. Moving across to the two more interesting picks right now, João Pedro has looked a little bit off of it recently. He's got one shot in the last 3 game weeks. I think context is massively important here, though. In 2 of those weeks, Chelsea had red cards for significant periods of the match they were playing with 10 men. So João Pedro was always going to be a little bit isolated. He was always going to be run ragged a little bit. Obviously, one of the only players who was really pressing the defensive line of the opponents. So he was going to look a little bit tired. I'm not surprised that he got a rest in the Champions League. And actually, the minutes he did get in the Champions League were, if anything, quite positive for FPL because he got sent off. Now, obviously, that's not good for Chelsea. It's not good for João Pedro as far as the Champions League is concerned. But for FPL, it's probably good news, if anything, because he's been given a little bit of a rest. He should start against Liverpool. And then although he goes off on international duty between game weeks 7 and game week 8, he would maybe have been a risk to start in game week 8 previously, having seen that there's a Champions League in the midweek after game week 8. But now that he's suspended for that midweek game, I think he probably plays in both the game week 8 and game week 9 fixtures. And as I've just mentioned, Chelsea have some good fixtures from game week 8 through to game week 12. So if his minutes are more secure because he can't play in the Champions League, I think that just secures him as a good FPL pick for a few more game weeks yet. So although it's a bad fixture this week, I would personally hold off selling him, considering what we're expecting from him after the international break. My key head-to-head this week against a lot of the template, a lot of the wildcarders from last week, will be Ollie Watkins versus Victor Gyökeres. Now, Gyökeres has a great run of fixtures, starting with West Ham this week. He's decently owned. He's, I think, on penalties as well, and he should get good minutes. So I am worried about not owning Gyökeres. But Ollie Watkins, I think, is a decent player to be going up against him in game week 7, in particular, in isolation, because it is Burnley at home. He has finally scored in the Premier League this season. In fact, Villa scored 3 against Fulham. So arguably, are they slightly getting back into their groove now? I think it's too early to say, but it is a very good fixture nonetheless against Burnley, who I wouldn't say they've been a terrible defence, but they are, so far statistically at least, the worst defence in the Premier League. So if you're going to hold on to a striker in the hopes of them scoring in any fixture, it would be at home to Burnley. Have I held on to Ollie Watkins too long? Absolutely yes, but I had other bigger problems with my side. Because he scored in game week 6, I'm a little bit more relaxed about owning him in game week 7 against Burnley. And if I was wildcarding right now, he wouldn't be in my squad. But do I think that he could match up fairly well against Gyökeres in game week 7? Yeah, I think he can probably hold his own. Now, Gyökeres could go bag a hat-trick, Watkins could blank, but also the reverse could happen, right? So I don't think that there's too much in it. So I think Ollie Watkins for me is a hold, and I'm happy enough with my forward line going into game week 7, knowing that 2 of the 3 are fairly template right now. Haaland and João Pedro are owned by a lot of managers, and then it's Watkins going up directly against Gyökeres for me versus the template. And I think for this week alone, I can just about get away with that. So if you're new to the channel, this is my weekly segment where I look through my favorite captain for each week, and I kind of monitor my performance throughout the season to see how my captaincy picks are doing. Now, this isn't just from my team, it's across the entire player base. So far, I've got a hit rate of 5 out of 6 game weeks. So 5 captains have returned out of the 6. And in those weeks, I've picked up 7 returns from the 6 captains. So off to a good start. This week, I'm not going to spend long on this section because my favourite captain by an absolute mile is Erling Haaland. Away at Brentford, it's still a good enough fixture to be backing a player whose form is just through the roof right now. He's got a better XG than I believe it's 12 Premier League clubs at the moment. So yes, he is my captaincy pick. If you wanted to go differential or you didn't have Erling Haaland, I don't dislike Gyökeres or Watkins, both with good home fixtures, as I just mentioned in the last section. And then also, arguably Bruno Fernandes is a very good captaincy pick as well this week if he holds on to penalties. I don't think I'm brave enough to go there now, having seen Sunderland perform pretty well defensively. And from what we've seen from Man United so far, it is worth noting they do have one of the best XGs in the league as a team so far. So maybe there's a little bit of narrative going on. The fact he's missed 2 penalties is playing on people's minds, but it's also playing on mine, and I wouldn't be recommending him right now. The other player is Salah. Not on my top 3, but if you own him, he's always a good pick. And Chelsea do have defensive problems right now. They're conceding a fair few. They've also got some injuries in their back line. So there's a potential opportunity for Salah to do pretty well in that match. But no doubt about it, Haaland is my favourite captain this week, and he will be the one that I'm scored against ahead of game week 7. So one other thing that has been playing on my mind over the last couple of days is whether or not I want to use the bench boost and just get it out of the way before I look at wildcarding, potentially in game week 8 or over the next few game weeks as well. Now, looking at it objectively, this does not look like the best week to be bench boosting for my side. However, I think there are decent enough arguments to try and just get it out of the way. So I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on this. I've put below the 4 players that are currently on my bench. Arguably, Sanchez might be the bench keeper over Dubravka, but right now I'll just use Dubravka for argument's sake. I've put the expected points via Solio Analytics, with live market data all plugged in, clean sheet odds, DEFCON potential, all of that is in there. And overall, I think it's registering about 12 expected points. Someone can do the maths for me there, but I think it's 12.1 if my calculations are correct. I would take that on a bench boost. I don't think that's an awful bench boost. I've seen some that are much better. I've seen 20 plus points, but I've also seen some that are way, way worse than that. And if someone just said, right, I'll offer you 12, 13 points on a bench boost for this game week, and it means you get it out of the way, and from game week 8 onwards, if you wildcard in game week 8, you don't need to have such a deep squad. You can have a GU on the bench for the foreseeable future, and you don't need to worry about it. And you can plow all of the money into your starting 11 and potentially even have the ability to roll transfers a little bit more easily because you don't need to worry about setting up an entire 15 for a bench boost in future weeks. So breaking it down, I think the positives are pretty convincing when you think about the timing of the bench boost. It's whether or not the opportunity is even there in the first place. Now, 3 of the 4 players I've got on my bench right now, Esteve, Anderson, and Anderson, so both Andersons, have very good hit rates for DEFCON. So I think considering the fixtures, they have a very high likelihood of hitting DEFCON in game week 7. Anderson, Nottingham Forest Anderson, away at Newcastle. I think that's going to be a combative match. I can really see him picking up DEFCON in that one. And his average hit rate has been very high. In the only weeks that he hasn't hit DEFCON, he's only been 1 point off. So I think it would be very unfortunate not to get 2 extra points from him. Fulham's Anderson has, I think, a 5 and 6 hit rate now. I think he missed the very first one in the season, but since then has been very good. And the centre-backs against Bournemouth have a very high ratio of hitting DEFCON anyway. So I think I can probably take that one to the bank as well. I'd be very unfortunate not to get an extra 2 points out of him. Esteve has also sneakily been very good on the DEFCON as well. I think he's hit the last 3 in a row, and he's consistently been very close to hitting it too. Aston Villa away, I'd imagine he has a good chance of hitting DEFCON in that game. So maybe not quite as convincing with Esteve, but still a decent potential for hitting DEFCON. So I think that's 6 extra points, maybe 5 points on average if Esteve maybe hits it 50% of the times against Aston Villa. So that's 5 extra points, plus the appearance points. You're getting 2 from all of them. I don't think there's any argument that any of them don't start. So that's an extra 8, plus an extra 5. That's 13 without any clean sheets measured in. Now, obviously, things like 2 goals for attackers against them could lead to minus points. You could get yellow cards. You could get own goals, as we saw with Esteve. So that's what brings down the expected points below. But as long as you even open up the possibility of clean sheets, it probably brings it back up a little bit as well. So I think Burnley have a 14% chance of a clean sheet, so that's not nothing. Fulham have an 18% chance of a clean sheet, so again, not nothing. And Anderson could get clean sheet points against Newcastle as well. It's not completely ridiculous that it could happen. It's unlikely, of course. But all of those minor possibilities add up to something that resembles extra points across the 4. And then also the save point potential for Dubravka is very good as well. He's hit a save point in 5 of his first 6. So I think across these 4, although they're away fixtures, although the fixtures aren't easy, I think there are enough routes to points here that it might make it quite tempting. Now, I do wonder whether I've done enough to convince you that this is a good bench boost. Let me know in the comments below what you think. But if I don't bench boost this now, I probably have to wildcard into a bench boost, which means that I need to set up with a stronger 15. I need more depth there, and I need to really think about the week in which I want to bench boost. And therefore, my team is probably structured with one particular game week in mind, like game week 8 or game week 9, for instance. So I just wonder if it's worth getting out of the way. And a lot of managers have already done so and are enjoying the fact that they don't need quite a strong 15 in order to set up for a bench boost. Let me know what you think. I think 12 points I'd probably take, but interested to hear your thoughts on that one. I won't spend any longer on it because it's highly relevant to me, not to you. So let me know your thoughts below. Let's move on to my final team. Let's wrap up by having a look at my team ahead of game week 7. We've already seen it, so I just want to summarize here. I'm fairly confident that this is a decent enough side to get me through game week 7 without needing a wild card right now. But from next week onwards, I would want Senesi, I would want Semenyo, I would want Raya. There are plenty of other picks that I would probably want to get to fairly quickly, and I'll only have one free transfer yet again to deal with the problems in my side. So every week it becomes more and more tempting. I think I can probably survive this week without. I'm just outside the top 1 million right now. It would be lovely to get a green arrow and just get inside it this week. If I use my bench boost, I'd be very disappointed not to get inside it this week. I'd be very surprised not to get a green arrow if I did activate my bench boost. Let me know below whether or not you would in my situation, and whether or not you'd consider maybe taking a hit to bring in Raya alongside Gabriel and double up on the Arsenal defence, and maybe help me postpone the wild card a little bit further down the line, because I'm only going to take that hit if I know that it's going to be a move that can pay off over several game weeks, and I'm not just going to immediately want to wildcard in game week 8 anyway. I think when I look at this team, in summary, the main head-to-heads versus the wildcard template and the strong template that I think will do well this week in particular, it would be Sanchez versus Raya. Raya's definitely ahead on that one. It would be Porro versus Senesi. I think Senesi's ahead, but Porro does have a chance of a clean sheet, does have a chance of attacking return. So I don't think it's a desperate maneuver that needs to be made right now, but I am very jealous of people who have Senesi. In my midfield, it's basically Ismaila Sarr versus Semenyo. I think Semenyo's better, but I think Sarr also has potential to do well this game week, so I don't hate that. I don't think it's a terrible matchup. And then up front, as I've already described, it's Watkins versus Gyökeres, and I think that's fairly even going into this game week. So I don't think I'm far enough off of the wildcard template for me to need to use a wildcard to pick up the players that I think are important. But I'm probably not that far away from it, if that makes sense. So let me know what you think of my team in the comments below. And of course, if you've got any of your own questions, I'll try and answer them before the Game Week 7 deadline. If you did enjoy today, I'd really appreciate it if you could hit like and subscribe to the channel. And I'll see you next week as we start preparing ahead of Game Week 8.